Oh, we're live. Welcome to the Runner's Life. I need something to like hold, like a pen or something. Here it is. I gotta like have something. Like Johnny Carson was always tin, 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 tin. You guys don't remember Johnny Carson, probably. You're all too young. Oh my God! You should see Florence today. It's more mob today than it was yesterday. I've been coming here for a month to 2 months for 15 years. Every year. I've never seen it this mobbed. I've seen Venice this mobbed, but never Florence. It's like people are just like, we're getting out. And like maybe I've seen a couple people with masks, but everybody's put that shit behind them. And I don't think they'll ever let it invade their lives again. I know I won't. In any case, it's great. I'm so happy because I know, like a friend of mine, I keep calling him my best friend over here because he is, Francesco. He's back to guiding, and he's like, I could be busy 7 days a week if I wanted to be 7 days a week. So he chooses like to work 5 or 6 days. You know, he needs a day off. So anyway, look forward to seeing him on Tuesday and his lovely. I don't think they got married yet, but his lovely significant other. So there should be like smell-o-vision here because if there were, you would smell like. You would smell so many great meals being cooked right now. Between the eateries that are down there, and a lot of Italians on Sundays like to cook like an afternoon meal, like a big afternoon meal. And so like the smells are like, unbelievable. I think that's part of what always attracts me here. So like the thumbnail says, the kids situation. So I have 3 of them that I know of. Oh, and by the way, I fucked up my time today. I didn't realize we were going backwards last night. So I thought like right now was like 5:15. It's 4:15 here. So we're 7 hours difference. You guys don't change till like next week, I think. So we'll catch up then. But I feel an hour younger. Anyway, back to the kids. So yeah, I have 3 kids. I was hesitant at first to have children because I knew it when I was very young. I had kids very young. My wife at the time and I had kids very young, very early 20s. You know, people don't do that anymore. It's very rare for anyone under like 30 to have a child, I think, anyway. I could be wrong about that though, you know, but I did study sociology in college, so I know a little bit about what I'm talking about here. No, I don't. I actually don't. Anyway, people chiming in. I will get to you guys in a little bit. So I was hesitant at first to have children because I knew I didn't want to be in the job I was in. I knew I wanted to get out and become a writer. And so I was like, how are we going to do this? You know, but at the same time, my first wife really wanted to have children. It's normal, right? You know, you get married, you have a kid or two. And also we both agreed, like if we were going to have children, we wanted to have them young so that we would still be relatively young when they were young adults or whatever, right? Because there's nothing worse than like being an old man and having a young child and you can't give that grandchildren time. You can't, you know, your body doesn't even work anymore hardly. How are you going to like get on the floor and play with them and all that sort of stuff? And also even just having kids when you're young is exhausting, you know? So anyway, and then with my second wife, we had a child. Again, I was hesitant because I happened to be going through a bad period in my writing life. And I was literally making like squat. And we were living in this big house in the burbs. And it was just a bad period. I mean, it was as close as I've ever come to like pulling a Tony Bourdain. And I'm not kidding. It was as close as I ever came because I was like, this is too much. I'm glad I didn't. And don't ever worry. I'm never going to do something like that because I love life too much. I think you guys know that by now. But at the time I was like, oh my God, This is, and so like when my second wife told me we were going to have a baby, I was like, oh my God, it's going to be a disaster because I have no money. How are we going to support the child? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Da, 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 da. And I was just terrible. I was awful. I was just like, I moped for 9 months. And then my little daughter's born, and I love her to death, right? Isn't that always the way it works? How could you not? It's just awesome. So I have 3 kids, and they're the oldest will be 32 tomorrow, Halloween guy, and the youngest will be 18 on December 16th or 17th. My father died on the 16th, December 17th. So, in fact, the last entry in my father's diary is Ava's birthday in big letters. I thought that was kind of cool. What a way to end it. But anyway, being a writer, I wasn't always around enough to be like the traditional father figure guy. The closest I came to it was when my son played Pop Warner football, and I sort of volunteer coached for one season. But there were plenty of like sporting events that I missed. I don't think I made one of my son's wrestling matches. I think it just, and there was trips and, and lengthy stays away from home. There was writing school. It just, and sometimes when I was home, I was thinking about what book I was going to write. And even though I was present, I wasn't really present. And so a lot of the burden of raising the children falls upon your partner, whether your partner's a man or a female, whatever, and I think I think a lot of writers, full-time writers who do what I do would probably can understand that. So sometimes I feel a little guilty that I wasn't like the traditional dad like that, but it's just impossible. My youngest, my daughter, is like mad at me, and I don't believe she will be forever. It's funny because out of my 3 children, she's the one the most like me. She wants to be a musician. I wanted to be a musician, and she's very independent. I was always very independent. She's thinking about not doing college right now. She's not doing college, and probably when I was her age, I didn't want to go to college. I just wanted to get into music or whatever and go out in the world. And but my back then it was like, you're going to college or you're done. In other words, my father would have beat me upside the head. My father would, if he had to drag me by a rope to college, I would have been going. So I was like, all right. And I'm glad I went, because even though I sucked at school, I had a great time. It was a 4-year party, right? And the friendships I made there, those are like, I don't have any brothers, so those guys are like my brothers from another mother. See what I did there? But having kids, it's hard. It's not easy. And I think if you are planning on becoming a full-time writer, the money doesn't come in regularly. You got to remember, you got to live life simply. You got to remember that. Make sure you give it a lot of thought with your partner, and make sure you discuss everything. Make sure, because you don't want to have to become that guy who has to get a full-time job and then ends up resenting everything, resenting your partner, whatever. So if you want to have children, if you're married and you want to have a child or 2, and you're a full-time writer, make sure you discuss it first with your partner and lay out everything. Get a notepad and lay out all like the pros, the cons, the whole bit. I never did that because I'm stupid, but that's the way it should have happened. I still would have had the 3 kids, I love kids so much that I swear to God, if I got into another, my lady friend now is beyond childbearing years. So there won't be any more, but she's going to be having a grandchild very soon. So I get to have fun with that maybe. I shouldn't call it a that. It's a he or a she. But you get what I mean. Anyway, that's my spiel on kids today. I wanted to take you guys outside today, but it's just too mobbed. I would have run into somebody, and broken another tooth. All right, let's go to question and answers. Someone is chiming in. William Whiteside from out west. Do you carry a 6-gun, William? I got to come out and see you someday. Cowboys. All right, let's see. Now, which one's first? Nice and getting out and getting back to normal. Any jaunts into the Dolomites for some mountain air and alpine climbs? Very good question. If you look on some of the past videos that I've done from Italy, we do a lot of four-wheeling with my best friend, who I mentioned already, who's the guide. And we jeep in not the Dolomites, but we jeep in the hills, the Tuscan hills, and there's a lot of trails, and we've often gotten stuck, and then what we do is we will drive down the hills into Chianti or maybe Gravi and have lunch, drink some wine, and then go back the other way. So yeah, there's a lot of I haven't hiked the Dolomites, or I haven't hiked the hills, but we've done a ton of off-roading. And I'm a Jeep guy, so I love to off-road. Let's see what else. Empty nester now. Much easier to read and write now, especially since he writes. Yes, I'm an empty nester, essentially, even though I've been living with my sons for the past, since COVID started. But they live on one side of the place. I live on the other. They do their own thing, buy their own food, cook their own food, whatever. I do my own thing. And we get along, luckily. Sometimes they fight, but whatever. But not for long. After this, I'm looking at either, if Zeldin wins in New York State, then I'm going to go north up towards Gore Mountain and North Creek. If Zeldin doesn't win, then I'm looking at Conway, Vermont, where it's live free or die. All right. Is it easier to be a pantser or a plotter riding around children? I need an outline to help get me into the groove. Saves you time. Well, if that's what works for you, William, then that's what you got to do. I didn't become a pantser until after my 5th book, because I outlined my first big novel, which became which was called The Innocent at the time, but when it was published, they called it As Catch Can, which was a silly title, because everybody would say As Catch What, or they'd say Catch Can. So that spelled death for that book right off the bat. But when I got the rights back, changed it back to The Innocent, and we sold hundreds of thousands of copies. So, and then I wrote Godchild. I outlined that one. Then I wrote Moonlight Falls. That one got outlined, and The Screamcatcher, I think I outlined that. And then I just started. I started getting into this mode where I would write without an outline, just an idea, and then I would outline the next few chapters as I went. And then I started not even doing that. I would just make a couple of notes so that I knew where I was going the next day. Now I don't even have to quite do that, but I still do. I get ideas and I'll write them down. But I make my notes right on the manuscript itself, so it's all in one place. What else we got? If you make your livelihood writing, it would seem much more difficult to put the kids at extracurricular activities ahead of providing for the family. Have a profession that provides regular income. Yeah, it is. It's hard. It really is hard. That's why I say you gotta decide for yourself, what's going to work or what's not going to work. With my third child, I mean, when I got my first book published, they gave me $250,000, but that $250,000 was spent so fast that within 6 months I couldn't even afford my taxes because I was young, dumb, and stupid. And so. But by the time my daughter was born, I was doing much better. And as the years, well, actually, at that time, I was still going through a bad time. But after, a couple of years later, I started doing really well again, really well. And like I said, my second wife, who was my ex, she was suddenly like, "Oh, come on back into the fold." And so I went back in the fold, and I was able to be a father to my daughter again. But I went overboard, and I took her to Italy a few times, took her to Paris, like big Cape Cod vacations, New York City almost every weekend. Like I spoiled, but I wanted to spoil her. It was something because it was an opportunity I had that I hadn't had before. And I don't want you mad at me, but anyway, those things happen. One day I even invited her here now. Let's see. Makes writing a secondary issue because the dedicated income stream. Yeah, it can be. It might be how you have to do it for a while. I hate that term. You can always write on the side. Like I hate that. People would say it to me all the time, and I'd want to like, shouldn't be that way though. You got to be realistic. William Whiteside again, do or die. Absolutely, amen. 45, we'll go shoot. Yeah, I got a 45 Kimber, 1911, AR-15. I had a beautiful Ruger 30-06 until I was out deer hunting one day, and I pulled back the bolt, just like everything just like exploded. So that gun's in fact, when I get home, I gotta turn it into the police so they can do something with it. And I've had also had a Ruger side-by-side 12 gauge, but that's also done. I got to get a new one. Anyway, that's it. I think that's it is that it for the question and answer? That's it for the question and answer. Thanks for chiming in, William. A lot of good questions. Please don't get mad at me for the time. I'm way off again. I will try next week to schedule more of these at the right time. All right. You have a great evening too. And everybody else have a great evening. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. And ciao, ciao.